Welcome back to the Weight Escape on our wonderful summit. I have a very special guest with me today, Kelli Watson, who I had the joy of meeting through the Todd Durkin Mastermind. And she's actually become a very, very special person in my life. And I really, really wanted to have her on this because I think she has a lot of interesting things to say about weight, whether we talk about, like we said before in previous episodes, physical, mental stuff, emotional. I'm really excited about the direction this is going to go today. So we'll see how that goes. But Kelli's in New York State. And she, like I said, I met her through the Todd Durkin Mastermind. She fortunately was my coach in my group, but is part of the coaching team with that, as well as has a company called Scripter Publishing, which I also had the joy of working with her with and contributing to a book. And that was a passion that she had. And it was kind of neat the way all that evolved. Really neat individual. I know she had a Studio 8, that was in New York as well. So she does have experience coming from the fitness side, has done a lot. I love all of her stories. She's seen it, done it. I feel like if there's an issue, call Kelli because she knows how to get through it. So I'm actually really excited to talk to her on more of a personal level today, and kind of working through some things that we face in life. But Kelli, if I missed anything about you, I want to make sure we get that before we get going.
You did a fantastic job, Jen. Thank you so much for having me on. I was very honored to be asked, and of course, think the world of you and just appreciate this summit that you're putting together and the message that you're getting out there. The only thing I would add is that I'm also a mom. And I think as we're talking about weight, that is certainly a piece of something as well, recognizing what happens when you become a mom and things that change in many different facets of your life from that. So that's the only thing I'll add. A mom of 3 children and two stepchildren. So
Busy.
yeah, busy, but all great though. All great.
Well, I love the fact that you added that because I think that kind of alludes to the direction that we're going to go today, because life changes, when you're young and you start a family and you have kids and life gets busy in its own way. But I mean, you're at that stage. I know you've got at least 1, if not 2 in college or headed to college.
Yeah,
And,
actually we had 4 graduate this year.
oh my
So 4 out of the 5 graduated this year. Three of them from college, 1 of them from high school. So and one of them's a junior in college. So they're in their late teens and early 20s.
busy.
Which is exactly what we're talking about with this life change, right? There's so many changes that are happening in this moment.
Yeah. So I think that that's such an interesting piece, because I know, I'm not in my 20s anymore and things are shifting and things are changing, and losing weight or addressing things is changing in a way that I wasn't expecting it to. And it's becoming what feels like harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm noticing a little bit of weight sitting in different places than it was before. And, it seems to take a little bit more work to get it off, but it seems to, and I'm, is this hormones? Am I starting menopause early? Where are we at with this? What's going on with my body? Why am I so hot? It's
Hot in the
February.
not so great sense.
It's February. I shouldn't be warm right now. Things like that. So, I mean, we sort of chatted about this before, but I'd love to kind of talk about that, shift as we grow, let's say, or we mature, because, things do change.
Yeah, it is. It's so interesting. And I'm really glad that we're talking about this today, because I think it's such an important topic. It is something all of us go through as women, menopause. And yet I don't feel like the conversation is as broad as maybe we would like it to be when we're in it, because we're trying to sort it out and we're trying to figure out what these changes mean, why they're happening, what we do with them, because they are not easy things to handle. And there aren't as many resources out there as I would like. I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because I just think more of us need to have these conversations. But yes, this is a unique stage of life. And, I was thinking about it before we got on the call, and I was thinking, as a trainer, I worked with many women who were in their 50s, 60s and up, and had either been through it, were going through it, or had been past it. And I was always not in it. And would be like, oh, I understand. And I only understood what I could from my perspective. Obviously, now that I'm in it, I understand it from a whole other level. But I do remember talking to people and listening to things they were experiencing. And when you're not in it, I think you kind of feel removed from it. And then when you are in it and you have to try and grapple with it, it isn't quite as smooth as you would like it to be. I used to think that when menopause came, my goal would be to handle it with grace.
Hmm.
That was my word. It still is my word. It's just not as easy to be graceful when you're in it as it is when you were before. I remember saying to my clients, my goal is to somehow manage it or handle it with grace. And I think that is still my goal. But now that I'm in it, it's more challenging than you think it's going to be.
Hmm. I like that. That's really neat.
Hmm.
So when we're talking about it, because I'd love to ask you, because you said, like, I don't think we're talking about it as broad, or I don't remember the
Mhm.
word that you used. But I'd love you to say a little bit more about that. Like, now that you've kind of, like you said, you worked with clients and you know, kind of had this vision for how you'd like to move through it. And now that you're in a different stage, what do you think is either missing, or where do you think these conversations need to start, or what do we need to open as women to make that more of a, whether it's a safe place to talk about or just more open about it, or where do you think we need to kind of point that needle, so to say, to be able to kind of get through it?
Yeah, good question. So I think there is a lot of literature out there about the physiological changes that happen. You know that the estrogen levels are going to drop. You know that your body is going to be lumpy and bumpy in ways it has not been lumpy and bumpy before. It will be more difficult to get rid of that. That literature is out there,
Hmm.
that hot flashes are going to be a thing for many women. I think what's missing is the conversation about what it means emotionally and mentally to handle this transformational change. There is there are many layers to it. There is not just the physiological foggy brain that again you can read about, but there is this distinct feeling of you see yourself differently, but the world also sees you differently. And I will say, in my experience, I went gray at 50, premenopause. I did that intentionally, and I'm so happy for that decision. But the minute that I went gray, I became anonymous.
Hmm.
People walk by you and don't acknowledge you, they just walk by. And I'm sure people did that before. I just notice it so much more now. It's almost like you're just not tuned in. Like that's just somebody that you can just ignore. They just, I don't even know, ignore. I don't think it's an intent. I just don't think I'm seen the way that people that don't have gray hair are seen. We dismiss. That is a huge mental hurdle to adjust to. Nobody talks about that.
No.
I also think there is an emotional component to it because as your body changes and as your brain chemistry changes, the way you view yourself is different. And so you don't feel, you use the word hot because you were referring to hot flashes, but I do think there is an element of being female that is about the energy that you're putting out into the world. And your energy is different and you feel differently about yourself and you recognize that the energy you're putting out is different. It's almost like instead of putting all that energy out, you're suddenly turning it in. Again, that's not something people talk about with menopause, but it's almost like what you used to do for everybody else, suddenly it becomes more important to do it for yourself. I think that's a really great thing, but I do think it is a big part of the transformation. So I think there are just lots of layers of subtlety and things that women experience. And then I also think I had a conversation with a friend of mine just last week about this topic. There is a sense of passing the torch
Hmm.
that is happening. And I notice it, and it's partly just aging, and I do think it's partly menopause, where in your 30s and 40s, where you're sort of building your career and building your life, and your kids are growing, and you're sort of at the leadership top levels of things, you're leading the pack, so to speak. But there is a moment here at the 50 to 60 range where we start to turn that over to the next generation. And it feels like you're passing the torch, which is fine. You can go into a whole discussion on that, but nobody talks about what's there for you next. So, what role is there now for a female in this position? It's different for men than women. So, my friend's comment was, if you look at the movies, there was a great quote, that you either, in the movies, you're either playing as a female, the hot lead, or driving Miss Daisy, right? What about this age, the 50 to 70 something, right? What's that role? What are we supposed to be now in culture, in our families? If we're not leading, if we're not on top of those things, and we're passing it along to people who are now coming up, that's great, but where does that leave us? So again, that's just another piece. So those kinds of things, I think, that are more subtle, that just are not, there's just not a lot out there about those kinds of things, what to do about that.
Hmm. I think that's really interesting. Just your comment about kind of, being dismissed in society, because now that you've said that, like what happens in that piece? And I'm kind of thinking like, the roles that I know of or growing up, or it's like, yeah, where does that group fit even in society, or
Right.
fit with, family? Like you say, your mom, you're blessing your kids off to school, and it's like you say, now what?
Yeah.
Or, maybe you're winding down a career. Now what? You're winding down, this. Now what? My body's changing. Now what? So I think it's really interesting that it seems like a lot of it kind of comes in that now what happens in many aspects of life at that time, instead of just, you graduate from college. Now what? It's like that one thing that you face, right? It's like that one big thing. But hearing you talk, it's almost like as a society, as women, in that range somewhere, maybe a couple of years before, maybe a couple of years later, it's like all of life's pieces become a now what at once. And that's where we're missing conversation.
I love that. I'm now going to think of menopause as the now what, because it's true. I really like that. So this is silly in some ways, but when you're growing up, in your mind, you kind of have a path, right? Like, I'm going to go to college, or I'm going to go to work, whatever your decision is. And I will grow, and then I'll probably have a family and grow that, and, find a relationship and be in a relationship that's meaningful to me. And, you sort of experience that. But then there is a moment that they don't tell you about. They don't say what happens after. There is no vision for now what at this stage. There is all of that, and then you're old and you die. Like at some point, I'll be elderly or whatever. But this is a really, and at the same time as we're saying now what, it is also the time that we are the most ripe. I feel like it's the fall of life, right? That harvest time. Like, we have so much experience. We have so much knowledge. We're probably at a point where we have the most control of our life that we've ever had. Not always being at everybody's beck and call. We can spend a little bit of time with ourselves and bettering ourselves on all the levels. And what do you do with that?
Mm.
We're at our prime. Now what? Hmm.
Well, I love that you say that, because I think, like you say, you've still got so much physical capability. You've still got so much mental capability. You've learned all the lessons, it's like, okay, I know what mistakes not to make, but how do you navigate that path? And I think we all kind of, calling myself out, it's like growing up, like you say, there's a path. You work, you raise kids, you move forward, and then there's this glorious retirement sitting out there somewhere.
Mhm.
But you're right. It's like there is a gap.
Mhm.
So,
There's
I mean, I think I'd like to say, like, from your experience with your friends, what would you say to start the conversation? Or what would you say, like, what do you do when you find yourself in that moment? Or do you have any insight?
I'm learning it.
Now
It's
what? Now what is the question?
yeah, there is no, I have yet to find it if it's out there. So if anybody's watching this and you have some answers, please share them with everybody. I do, I think you need to get around people who are in the same mode. So, some kind of support group of people that are going through it with you. As you can do it on your own. It's really hard, or you can do it together and it's a lot easier. So I do think being in the company of people going through it, so you can try and process it and you can sort it through with people who understand. I think that's really important. Um, I don't know the answer to what's out there for people that are in this sort of gap. I don't know the answer, but I do know that there are a lot of incredibly gifted, talented, powerful women going through this,
Mm.
and somebody's doing it well and somebody's figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting, especially as women, and I'll call myself out, like I said, a little bit here, because I've gone through stages in my life where it's like you hit that now what moment, and it's like we get so afraid of it. And I've had big pieces of life hit me, but not so many at once, fortunately, to this point in my life.
Mhm.
And I think it's almost like we need to learn how to embrace that moment. Instead of being afraid of it, it's almost like now what can actually be a gift too, because I get to make a decision, or I get to create, or I get to, you know, do something in the middle of this that maybe I would never have seen before had I not got to this point. Um, and I know you and I have talked about that in many conversations in the past, but I'm wondering if you could say anything to that unknown piece, because I think we do get
Yeah.
scared of it. And so
I
what
think
happens?
you're absolutely right. The thing that closes us down is the fear. The reason people don't talk about it is partly fear. And we go into it kicking and screaming, like, because we're afraid of it, right? It feels like the great unknown. We don't like what we're seeing. We don't necessarily like what we're feeling, and we resist and resist and resist. And that only makes it more, what we resist persists, right? So, and what you focus on expands. So if you're afraid, that is what will become.
Mm,
And that's what this will be. But fear is an emotion that closes you down, that doesn't allow you to thrive. Fear allows you to turn inward and get tense and tight instead of being open. So I think, going back to grace, when I was using that term, I think that's what I was trying to, that word was sort of the word I could use that meant open up,
mm,
to go with it, to experience it without resisting it, and to not let the fear be the guiding light, but rather to be more focused on what does this give rather than what does it take. What's in it that's for me, as opposed to what's happening to me, right? That's what grace is. To me, grace is more of an opening up and accepting, because there are as many, if not more, great things coming from it as the opposite. It's just a matter of what you focus on.
mm. Well, I like what you said earlier too about, like, building a group of people around you,
Mhm.
and really trying to relate, and that opening up, because I think we tend to hide, or like you said, in society, like with your gray hair, you felt dismissed. And it's like, well, if society is dismissing me, then how can I be accepted into a group of people? When
Yeah.
yet the reality is, opening up, everybody actually can relate, maybe not to every little piece, but it's like, oh yeah, you're noticing that on your body. Oh, okay, I thought it was just me. Or you're
Yes.
having those thoughts too. Oh, okay, I thought it was just me. And I
Yes.
think there's a gift that we do and help each other by opening up and sort of saying, like, this is where I'm at. Now what? Right? Like, of just saying, now
Yeah.
what?
Yes. And there is something so soothing about not being alone,
Mm,
right? To know that you're not the only one. But I also think, as women, we have been socialized to just get on with it. you know, just, all right, you're feeling that way, get over it because the laundry needs to get done and somebody needs that. And you've got these to-do lists and tasks to do, just get on with it. Right. And I do think there is a beautiful opportunity to not just get on with it at this phase. You do not have the demands that you had when you had toddlers in the house, or the demands that you had when you were really just starting out and had no money and couldn't make ends meet, versus most at this age are starting to get a little bit more free with their money. So there were restrictions when you're younger, that you don't have now. So there is a great opportunity to not just get on with it, but to stop and be with it. And I think when you surround yourself with a support group of any sort, whether it's just your friends or your family or your parents, your mother who's gone through it before you, if you're lucky enough to still have her, to know that you're not alone, but also to spend time delving into it and sharing with each other, so that you don't have to just push on and put it under the rug and ignore it, but rather embrace it.
I think that's such a valid piece. Like, as like you said, society speeds up and speeds up and speeds up. And I know personally, I almost feel like as a woman, and maybe this isn't fair to say, but it's like the expectations seem to be growing and growing and growing. And, there's so many pieces in my life. Like, I have teenagers a little bit younger than your kids, but I almost feel like the expectations of what I need to be able to do behind the scenes is different than when they were toddlers. And it's like, well, where is this bar coming from? Like, is it because when they were toddlers, I've had this, this, and this, and now that they're older, did that bar just keep growing and growing and growing? And then now, how do I take care of me, and how do I take care of my health, and how do I, I'm not quite at the now what, but it's, how do I do all these things and manage all these plates when my kids are becoming way more and more independent, and I should have more time, but yet I feel like the plates are spinning faster than ever. And it's like this never ending, like you say, the laundry, there's always laundry, but,
Yes.
it's like, how do we take that internal, and where is that expectation actually coming from? Is it
Mm.
internal, or is it out there, or is it a combination of, I've interpreted this to mean that I need to do more to be
Yeah.
okay, or to be safe, or to be successful, or to be, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's such a good question. It's such a good question to ask ourselves. Where is that expectation coming from? Because we're being driven by the expectation. And I will say this, my experience in psychology and coaching will land me in the court that says it's coming from within. Because whatever is happening out there, we are interpreting, and we're interpreting it through our lens, through our experience, through our knowledge base. And so somebody out there could be saying, women should be whatever, but it's your interpretation of it that allows you to respond to it whatever way. So if the expectation in that bar is up there, it's from within us, not from without. And so that's not always easy for people to feel. We want to blame all them, whoever them are, right? We want to blame them, and not look in and say, all right, where is this coming from within me? What is my story? What am I saying to myself that is making me interpret this message this way? And then how am I taking that story and playing it out in my life? Am I telling myself that I'm giving up? Is that the story? I can't meet their expectations, so therefore I'm giving up, which means cookies at the end of the day and snacks all day long, and who cares because I'm giving up? Or does it mean, don't tell me what I can do because I know what I can do and I'm going to be fighting, and then am I fighting and then resisting because I'm fighting, and then what's the result of that? Or is it that whatever the world says is the world's problem? What do I say? What am I choosing to be in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just at this now what phase. So I'm so embracing that idea. It's not, that's at any point in our life. What are we choosing to be in this moment?
Right.
And that is a deep question,
Yeah.
but powerful question.
Yeah. No, I love that question, because I know I'm pretty sure it was you actually. We were talking more about business, but I love that you've brought this back to health because, um, I think you recommended a book to me once, Start with Why.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I'd never really been given the opportunity to really go internal to what my why was for, it happened to be a business thing with our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But, relating it back to health or relating it back to that now what, it's like we've, especially as moms, been so busy with our kids and so busy with this and so busy with this. How often do we get that chance to, like you say, reflect into why and what's my best choice here? Or is that giving up? Is that default of, well, I just give to everybody else. At the end of the day, I'm exhausted. So yes, why would I take an extra 5 minutes for me to maybe pick something a little healthier or go out for a walk, or even taking that reflection time? Like, I think sometimes we get so busy on the, I want to lose weight or I want to this, so I got to eat right, I got to exercise. And it's like sometimes that 5 minutes of turning inward actually gives more, you know, out there than trying to go and do and move and push and work hard and get a good workout in or have the perfect meal or, all of these things that we put in front of us. It's like, when do we get to come back this way?
Yeah. 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 A couple things that I'm thinking as you're saying that, and it's so true. Everything is that, why are we doing this? Why are we choosing this? Why? That's always an interesting thing to delve into. But I would say what came to mind as you were saying that is, number one, it's really hard to slow down, right? We are on, it's part of the reason that the quarantine has been so difficult for people is because they were literally forced to slow down. And for some people, that was really hard. But if you can, and if you can practice, even if it's minutes to start with and then longer, it changes the way that you interact with the world. And as you said, that 5 minutes of time for yourself allows you to fill your bucket enough to continue to give exponentially to everybody out there who needs you. So that was one thing I was thinking, but I would also say, Jen, you're the perfect example of this. Sometimes going in is just choosing to set goals that are meaningful to us, not to that person or that person or that person, but to us. And you made some choices to set some goals that were meaningful to you when you started doing your triathlons and started doing the training. So even though it wasn't quiet time and you were, out running and pedaling for God knows how long and participating in these crazy events, more power to you. I think the moment that you decided and chose to do something for yourself because you wanted to, not because anybody else was telling you you had to, was a big shift for you. You're a perfect example of how impactful that can be.
I love that you said that. And I know I'm interviewing you, but I just want to add something to that too, because I think, when you get focused on those goals and you start picking goals for yourself, sometimes it's also so easy to get so focused on the goal, you forget to enjoy the ride.
Mm.
And one thing, personally for me over the last few months of having some cardiac issues and having to take a step back and then almost feeling like I'm behind, I need to be somewhere that I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to enjoy the journey of where I am.
Mm.
And this has been, I think, Kelly, you and I have talked about pieces of this before, but it's like now that when I'm out on my bike, I take the time to look around and be like, I get to be outside right now, instead of just, I've got to get this done. I've got to get it done in a certain amount of time. I'm behind, I'm late, and then I think even as a mom, as a woman, as a business person, as a friend, I've become so driven to get to where I'm going. I've forgotten to enjoy the journey in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, like, as women, as we do get busy with life, whether it's premenopause, menopause, whatever, where are we forgetting to enjoy the journey? Because we're so focused on that end point. But if we get so focused, the end point actually never shows up. Or we get pieces, right? We get those
find
pieces
another one.
yeah, yay, I got here, but then what's next, right? And we don't take that time to be like, I'm actually just going to enjoy the moment. and just allow myself to be here. And not, it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be, you know, look pretty even sometimes. Sometimes it's ugly,
It is.
but I got to let myself be here.
Yeah, yeah. You touched right on it when you said the difference between I have to and I get to. That, if you can flip that switch, imagine the difference of I have to get to work. I have to stay on this diet today. I have to only eat, you know, wood chips, cardboard, whatever. Like I have to, versus I get to choose what I put in my body today. I get to choose where I'm spending my time today. I get to choose how I respond to this situation. It is night and day. And it goes back to just exactly what I was saying of resisting this moment in life, this transformation that I happen to be in, versus allowing it with grace. I, in one sense, have to go through this. My life is human, and therefore, as a human, I must go through this. I cannot stop it. So I can choose my response to it. Do I go in saying, oh, you know, these hot flashes are ridiculous and they're awful, or this weight around my center that I've never wanted is just unbearable? Or do I go into it and say, all right, I get to still be my best. I get to accept the things I cannot change, but continue to do the things I can do the best I can do them. I get to embrace this moment of life for all the things it's giving me instead of what it's taking away. It's a completely different mindset, and I do think it makes all the difference.
Feels less busy.
More in control and more enjoyable, because like you said, it allows you to see the good, whether it be, you know, the beautiful sunshine as you're out on your bike and you get to be there in the morning and you know, smell the fresh grass and hear the birds and feel the sun.
Sure.
Or I got to get this done before I get on to the next. I have to get this done. It's completely different experience. And if you go into it with I get to, and you stop and you enjoy the pieces you can truthfully, honestly, authentically enjoy, you get more of those, because what you focus on expands.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the work. I think that's the work, is that constant awareness that that choice is yours. How you respond and what you do with it is yours.
I like what you said about that. Like what you focus on expands.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a very different feeling. Like even for me, like I said, shifting in the last couple of weeks of I get to go out and see the sunshine. And I make a conscious effort of, you know, there's trees there, there's this, it's sunny, I can feel the sun. Or even a couple of days ago, I get to feel the rain on my back, because sometimes it is hard. It's like, it's miserable out. I do not want to go outside, but I get to, and I'm healthy enough to, and I'm going to enjoy my health while I have it. And I do get that choice. And, you know, like you said, when you focus on those pieces, they expand. And it's like, now I'm seeing more, or I'm hearing more birds, or I'm, you know, I'm noticing things that I've never noticed before. And I'm like, how long have they actually been there? But I was just so busy resenting the fact I had to get it done that I didn't even notice they were there in the first place.
That's right. And both of those things exist, right? The resentment exists and the beauty exists.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is your choice of which one you focus on. It's just which one you focus on. One is not right or wrong, but one does produce a better result. So that's a focus. You're bringing me back. I don't know how much time we still have, but I was with Scripter. We're actually publishing a book right now. We during the quarantine, we reached out to teenagers to ask them to write a chapter of a book, like you did for the collaborative book, to write a chapter of a book about their experience during quarantine. And this morning, I was on a call with one of the authors, and she wrote about four-leaf clovers. So at the beginning of quarantine, when everything stopped, her mother said one day, let's just get outside and go for a walk. And her mother stopped in a field of clover and found several four-leaf clovers in a matter of no time at all. And this girl was looking at it going, oh my God, this is so boring. Why would I ever sit down in the field and look for clovers? Like, I just want to go home. I want to watch my movie. I want to watch Netflix or whatever, you know? But then one day her mother said, it's all the way you look at it. It's just your perspective. Do you get to go out on a beautiful day, instead of being at school or instead of being in your room, you get to be outside in this field of clover. And whether you choose to look for four-leaf or not is up to you. But if you choose to focus on that, you will find them. So the last picture in the book is a picture of the unbelievable amount of 4, 5, and 6-leaf clovers they have found. And they have a table. They laid them all out on a table and put glass over it. Hundreds that they found during quarantine. And that is exactly the message. At the end, she says, I can hardly wait to go. And she goes, I can spend an entire day looking through four-leaf clover or clover fields to find four-leaf clovers. And all it was the perspective. So yes, at my stage in life, it's important. At your stage, it's important. And even for teenagers, it's important.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think, bringing it back to our whole sort of main topic about weight loss and letting go of whether, like we said, physical weight, emotional weight. Yes, most of us are, really actually focused on the physical weight because that's what we feel so much. Mm-hmm. But it's that letting go. And like you say, the perspective is everything. And you get to choose who you are in the moment. You get to choose what you look for, who you look for in any moment. And I think that mindset shift is really the catalyst for transformation.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm glad you brought it back to the weight loss, because obviously that's the main topic. But, weight at this stage is challenging. Weight at any stage can be challenging. I don't mean to minimize any other moment. But even people who have never had weight issues like me, I'm now having this issue, right? So I'm experiencing this in a way that I've never experienced before. And I've grappled with, how do I shift that mindset? How do I embrace what I have found unembraceable, not worthy of any kind of embrace? So my challenge is, how do I accept that, but not give up? Mm. And what I work on is the recognition that beauty is not the container. Mm-hmm. Even though society wants us to believe that beauty is the container, I recognize at this stage of my life that is just simply untrue. That the people that I find the most beautiful people has nothing to do with the color of their hair, the size of their waist, the clothing that they're wearing, whatever we want to focus on physically. Nothing to do with that. The most beautiful people in the world are the ones who are at peace with themselves, because it shines from the inside out. And that is not an easy thing. And you're not that every minute. Even when you get there, you're not that way forever. It is a practice, not a perfect. But if you think about the people in your life that you find the most beautiful, it has not one thing to do with the physical box that they're in. It has to do with how authentically aligned and peaceful they are with themselves from the inside. So that is a way to gracefully accept physical changes that are challenging.
It's beautiful.
It's true, right?
Totally. And I just think it's a good spot to mention, though, too. We'll attach the link when we release this summit, but you do something, you give back on Monday mornings. I'd love for you to explain that a little bit, because
I actually started doing these Monday morning messages for my Todd Durkin mastermind group. And I was just thinking, I coach these amazing fitness professionals and business owners from all over, and I just want them to start their week off with a good thought, something that's just motivational and inspiring or thought provoking, just and more to know that I'm thinking of them, that I'm here at the beginning of their week, and they can hear my voice. And so I every Monday put out a Monday morning message, and then pretty soon people started sharing them and would tell me they'd shared them. And uh, Todd, our mentor, ended up encouraging me to go bigger with that. So I started offering it to whoever, anybody who wants to get them. They're free. And so every Monday morning I put out just short, typically 3 minutes or less of a thought. And it's whatever is inspiring me in the moment is what I put out. Um, and they're just designed for you to have something really positive, thought-provoking, uplifting, motivational to begin your week. And eventually I'll put those together in a book and make probably an audio book with them. But for now, they're free. You can sign up for them on my website, and you'll put the link in there. And you just do a quick little opt-in, and you'll be able to receive those once a week. They come to your phone, so you get them as a text message, and you can listen while you're in the car, while you're doing dishes, while you're out for a walk with the dog, whatever. Like I said, 3 minutes or less. They're not time consuming, but hopefully they are something that help you get through your week.
I mean, I would recommend anybody watching this to jump on, because I mean, I'm a little bit lucky because I'm in Pacific time and you're back east. So without fail, in my inbox or my text every morning, it comes, like Monday morning, sorry, it comes, and it's like, you've been up for a while, it's gone out, and I get to wake up to that. And I really made a practice of, no matter how grumpy or happy or whatever I'm feeling, that does start my week in a positive way. And like we've sort of talked about this whole time, is a choice. And I choose to have that as part of my weekly ritual or daily ritual. And we won't get into that because that's a whole other effect.
We could talk for a long time about that too.
You get to choose how you want to start your day, how you want to start your week, how you want to start anything. And that's just a personal choice that I make, because I want more positive, inspiring things in my life. And with the amount of things going on, I think we need to take that little extra step to not get sucked into the negative, because it is so easy. And like you say, we get to choose what we're going to do in that moment of see the resentment or try to see something we haven't seen before. And without fail, like, there's never been one that I've opened that I haven't got something out of. And sometimes I've been happier to hear some of them than others. Sometimes it's been a great kick in the pants. But I've always gotten something, and it's always putting me in a great headspace to start the week.
Well, that's
So
good.
I would strongly recommend jumping on that, because you won't regret it. So.
Thank you. Well, that means a lot to me too. And yes, I do hope I think they're inspired. They're not anything that is, sometimes I think things come through me, not from me. And I feel like those often come through me. They're just, my antennas are up and the idea comes and I just put it out. It's not necessarily from me. So I'm glad it means something to you.
So before we go, I've kind of been doing this with everybody, but I'll take our topic of menopause just because, that's what we were addressing today. And you had said somewhere along the line, you wanted to handle it with grace. But if you could take who you are today back to that person, or back to maybe even the person you were just before that, and give a piece of advice, what would that be at this point? Or what would you want to go back and say as you enter this phase of your life?
I think I would tell my future self, it's going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. And I think there's something very soothing for me in knowing that. So no matter how challenged I feel by it, or how frustrated I might get in moments, that it's all going to be okay.
That's awesome. I love that. So thank you so much for your time today. I always walk away with something every time we chat. I love it.
Yeah, same here, Jen. It's just been great talking with you, and thank you for giving me the honor to be here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. So like we said, we will make sure Kelli's information is up and out with the email that goes out with this. It'll be posted on our site as well. So you can definitely grab that Monday morning message. Like I said, you won't regret it. Or if you want to know anything else about Kelli or Scripture Publishing, she's amazing at what she does. feel free to reach out to her. You won't regret it. She's an amazing human being, as you can tell. So with that, we'll say thank you for giving us your time today, and
Thank you.
can't wait to connect you down the road.
Thank you. And good luck to all of you that are listening. It's going to be okay.
It'll be okay. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.